The rain fell in heavy sheets against the windows of the old farmhouse. Thunder groaned in the distance, shaking the fragile glass. Sean sat cross-legged on the floor of his grandfather's study, the musky scent of leather-bound books filling his nostrils. The clock on the wall ticked softly, steady, relentless, like a heartbeat. He shouldn't be in here. His mother always warned him to leave grandfather's things alone. Even 2 years after the old man's death, the room remained untouched, an eerie shrine to a man whose life was clouded in secrets. Sean traced a finger over the wooden desk surface, his hand pausing when he spotted a photograph wedged between dusty journals. It was a black and white image, curled at the edges. 5 men stood in a clearing, their faces shadowed by the canopy of towering pines. But Sean's attention drifted to the tree behind them, a gnarled, twisted thing with bark like cracked stone. It clawed skyward as though it were trying to escape the earth's grip. His grandfather stood at the center, younger, eyes sharp beneath the brim of a wide hat. But one man, far to the right, was different. His face was pale, drawn, and blurred as if time itself had tried to erase him. A name was scrawled hastily on the back. James Harrow, missing, 1968. Sean felt his pulse quicken. He had heard the story once, long ago, when he was barely old enough to understand. James Harrow was a local legend. He had vanished without a trace in Blackwood Forest, swallowed whole by the shadows. The only clue left behind was a torn piece of his jacket snagged on a tree branch. His grandfather never spoke of that day, brushing aside questions with a grim smile. But something about that forest, that tree, it haunted Sean's dreams. The same vision, again and again, moonlight pouring through skeletal branches, and that tree standing alone in the heart of the woods. Always watching, always waiting. And in the dream, something called to him. The first dream. That night, the dreams came again. Sean stood on a narrow trail, the scent of wet earth and pine heavy in the air. The wind whispered through the trees, low and mournful. Ahead, half shrouded in mist, the twisted tree loomed. Its bark was darker here, slick with moisture. Long cracks ran along its trunk, as though something inside strained to break free. He took a step closer. A shape hung from one of the branches. A rope. And swaying at the end of it, no, someone, was a figure with hollow eyes and a gaping mouth. Sean tried to scream, but the forest swallowed his voice. He woke drenched in sweat, heart thundering against his ribs.
Days passed, but the dream clung to him like a shadow. At school, he could barely focus. His friends laughed and gossiped, their world simple and bright, but Sean's thoughts remained fixed on the photograph, on James Harrow, on that tree. One afternoon, he returned to his grandfather's study. Dust motes drifted in the slanted light, as he rummaged through faded journals and brittle newspapers. Finally, in a battered leather notebook, he found an entry that made his blood run cold. July 12, 1968. We heard it last night. The sound. Something old, something wrong beneath the earth. Harrow wanted to turn back. Should Vive listened? The tree, it isn't natural. It calls to you. I saw it take him. Oh, piano. Sean's hands trembled as he flipped the pages. The handwriting grew frantic, the words jagged and scrawled. There is a doorway beneath the roots. If you hear the whispering, run. A chill traced down his spine. What had his grandfather seen out there? It was late when Sean finally made up his mind. Blackwood Forest was less than 5 miles from town, close enough to walk. His parents wouldn't notice if he left after dark, not with his mother working late and his father still at the bar. If there were answers to be found, they would be out there, by the tree. He packed a flashlight, an old compass, and his grandfather's notebook. The wind had picked up by the time he reached the edge of the woods. The trees groaned softly, their branches clawing at the moonlit sky. The entrance to the old hiking trail was marked by a rusted sign. Warning, unstable ground, stay out. Sean hesitated. A voice in his mind whispered, turn back. But another voice, deeper, older, urged him forward. He stepped across the threshold. The deeper he went, the thicker the air became, heavy with damp moss and decay. The flashlight's beam cut weakly through the fog as he followed the crumbling path. Every so often he heard something, a branch snapping, distant footsteps. But when he turned, there was nothing there. An hour passed, maybe more. The compass needle spun erratically, as though the forest itself refused to be mapped. Then, at last, he saw it. The tree. It rose from a clearing, black against the moonlight. Its trunk split open at the base, a jagged wound in the earth. Sean's pulse pounded in his ears as he crept closer. The bark felt cold beneath his fingers, slick like stone beneath years of rain. At his feet, something glinted. He knelt down and brushed away the leaves. A silver locket lay half buried in the soil, its surface etched with the initials JH8. James Harrow. I. A shiver crawled up his spine. He wanted to leave, to run, but the ground trembled beneath him. And then he heard it. A whisper, faint and distant, rising from beneath the roots. Help me. Sean's breath hitched. The sound twisted inside his skull, too real to be a dream. He reached out, fingers brushing the jagged opening at the base of the tree. The darkness clung to Sean like a second skin. For a breathless moment, he tumbled through the earth, cold, damp soil closing around him, until he hit the ground with a bone-jarring thud. His flashlight flickered weakly in the gloom, its beams struggling against the blackness. The air was heavy, too heavy, as though the earth itself had exhaled something ancient and wrong. Sean swallowed the rising panic in his throat and pushed himself upright. His hands trembled as he swept the flashlight across his surroundings. The walls around him were not soil, but something older, smoother, like stone worn down by centuries of flowing water. A tunnel. He had fallen into a tunnel beneath the roots of the tree. Help me. It was a voice, a human voice, and it was close. Sean's heartbeat thundered in his ears as he forced himself to move forward. Each step echoed in the silence. The air grew colder the deeper he went, the smell of damp earth giving way to something sharper, metallic, like blood. Minutes blurred into eternity before Sean's flashlight revealed a door. It stood at the tunnel's end, massive and wrong, carved from stone the color of bone. Strange symbols twisted across its surface, lines and spirals that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. A chill crawled down his spine. His grandfather's notebook had mentioned a doorway beneath the roots. Was this it? Sean hesitated. Every instinct in his body screamed to turn back, to leave while he still could. But the whispering grew louder, more urgent. Please, help me. He reached out.
The stone was freezing beneath his fingertips, but as soon as he touched it, the symbols flared with a sickly green light. The ground trembled beneath his feet, and the door began to open. A wave of cold air swept over him, carrying with it the scent of rot. Beyond the door stretched a cavern, vast and shrouded in shadow. Jagged roots hung from the ceiling like skeletal fingers, and the walls pulsed faintly, as though the earth itself were alive. Sean's breath hitched. In the center of the cavern stood a figure. The man who shouldn't be. The man hung suspended from the roots, his wrists bound by blackened vines. His face was pale, eyes hollow and sunken, yet familiar. Sean's blood ran cold. It was James Harrow. The silver locket in Sean's pocket seemed to burn against his skin. He took a step closer, flashlight trembling in his hand. Mr. Harrow? His voice echoed strangely in the cavern. The man's head jerked up, and his lips twisted into a ragged plea. Please, you have to get me out of here.